Morning, colleagues. Welcome to this meeting of Cabinet. Just a wee reminder that we are recording. It's a public meeting, so usual processes. Please, if you're speaking, can you remember to put on the microphone so that you are picked up in the recording. Have we got any apologies?
Convener, I have an apology from Mr Hayes.
And order business.
Convener, there are three papers, 2 follows and 1 tabled item. Issued last week as a follow paper, public item with an education interest, item 11, Gala Days and Special Events, Milestone Anniversaries. That's a report by the Head of Commercial Operations. An additional item, which is a private item, no education interest, item 19, which is 328 supported bus service. That's a report by the Head of Commercial Operations. And tabled this morning is a report, item number 17, regarding New Byres Crescent Gold Bridge. It's a joint report by the Director Resources and the Joint Director Health and Social Care.
Thank you. Have we got any declarations of interest? Just my own. I declare an interest in item 5, inspection at Tynewater Primary School. Could I ask perhaps if members are agreed that Councillor Constable could take the chair for that item? I need to declare an interest as my wife is a teacher at that school, so it's inappropriate for me to participate in that one. Is that in agreement with everyone? Thank you. Takes us to item 4A, minutes of the special meeting of the 25th of February. Do I agree with this? And the second one is the normal meeting of the 25th of February. Happy to agree. Any questions, comments to these? Thank you for that. And I will vacate the chair for Councillor Constable.
Item 5.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This is a report on the inspection of Tynewater Primary School nursery class, excuse me, and undertaken by the Care Inspectorate. And the Care Inspectorate found that the quality of care and support was good, the quality of the environment was good, the quality of staffing was good, and the quality of management and leadership was good. The inspection team noted that Tynewater Nursery School provided a caring and supportive environment, that staff team worked hard to ensure that families were given a warm welcome, and that staff were aware of the needs of children and in particular those with additional support needs. The inspection team noted that the new staff team should continue to work together and support each other, which will help them focus on the good outcomes for all children in their care and work to meet the recommendations made at the inspection. The Cabinet is asked to note the contents of the inspection report, pass this report to Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee, and note that whilst acknowledging the good work being carried out at the nursery, the Council will continue to challenge, support and monitor the service in relation to achieving sustained excellence through further improving performance.
Thank you. Are there any special issues you wanted to raise about Tynewater in the report?
Okay, the main issue for Tynewater is they've been short-staffed this year, and it's been very, very difficult to get supply staff, and this has impacted hugely on the school. And whilst the grades are good, I think there's maybe an element of disappointment that the head teacher wasn't able to spend as much time as he would have wished supporting the nursery through their improvement. We are working to resolve that issue. It's a national issue, it's not just a local issue, but especially with Tynewater being such a rural school, it's been very difficult to get supply staff.
Well, we congratulate them on getting the grades they have despite these difficulties. Are we happy to support all these recommendations? Good.
Thank you, colleagues. Thanks, Bob. That takes us to item 6, which is the inspection of the Lastwick High School Centre.
Thank you, Chair. Lastwood High School was inspected in January 2013 and then visited again in January 2014 to assess the extent at which the school was continuing to improve the quality of its work and to evaluate the progress made since the last report. What the inspection found that the Lastwood High School Centre, that I'm looking for the grades. What the inspection report found was that the school had made the improvements in its approaches to self-evaluation and that the leadership across the school was improving. The education lead officers will discuss with the officers how to best provide further support to the school and maintain contact to monitor progress. This report was a very impressive progress made in a short period of time, and a follow-through report on a priority will be an ordinary inspection next time. So, during their visit, the inspectors talked to young people, the head teacher and staff, and were able to find out how well the young people are now learning to achieve and how the school is continuing to support them to do their best. The Parent Council has significantly extended its membership and more involved with the school. And the School Improvement Plan allows for sustainable development and improvement. So, the Cabinet is asked to note the content of the inspection report, to pass it to performance review and scrutiny, congratulate the parents, pupils and staff connected with the inspection report and the very good progress made since the inspection of 2013, and note that officers within the Directorate will continue to challenge, support and monitor the service, and note that the officers within the Directorate will liaise with Education Scotland to monitor progress and prepare a progress report within 1 year.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. The grades in fact are not on the report, but they are good, and it is really encouraging to see such a positive thing from a brand new school and a brand new head. And Mr. Williamson is clearly doing an excellent job. Thank you.
Colleagues happy to accept the recommendations. It's again encouraging to have positive reports coming through. Takes us then on to item 7, the inspection of Pennycook High School.
This is another very positive report. The Pennycook High School was inspected in February 2014, and the inspection covered all aspects of the work of the school at all stages. Following the school inspection report, the evaluations were noted as improvements in performance as very good, the learners' experience good, meeting learners' needs very good, and the curriculum was good, and improvement through self-evaluation was good. Please bear in mind that during this inspection the head teacher was off sick, and the DHT, Donna MacDonald, did a very good job in supporting this inspection. The key strengths were noted as an inclusive ethos built on the values of pride, participation, respect, inclusion, determination and excellence, and the school inspector reported that it was one of the few schools that she's seen where the youngsters actually live the values. Every child knew what pride meant that they spoke to, so they actually lived the values. Confident and courteous young people who enjoy positive relationships, effective support provided to young people requiring additional support, and the range of opportunities including international experiences for young people. The improvements were agreed between Education Scotland and the Directorate to continue to develop the curriculum to provide all young people with their full entitlement, and to continue to develop arrangements to assess and monitor young people's progress from S1 to S3. The Cabinet is asked to note the content of the inspection report, pass this report to performance and scrutiny, congratulate the pupils, parents and staff connected with Pennycook High School Centre on the key strengths, and note that whilst acknowledging progress reflected in this report, continue to challenge, support and monitor the improvements, and instruct the Director of Education, Communities and Economy to ensure that the School Improvement Plan incorporates the recommendations made.
Thank you. Well, it's really pleasant to see such another excellent report coming through. Since assuming my new role, I went out to Pennycook and met the Deputy, Mr MacDonald. I was very impressed in general about the school, and it was very good to see such an excellent report coming on. I will wish Mr Reedy a speedy recovery. Thank you.
Thanks, Leader. I would echo what the Cabinet Member has just said, and I think we must congratulate the acting head. But this reflects, I think, also the changes that Mark Eady has brought into the school, because this is, without a doubt, a better report than the last inspection we had in the school. I've always viewed Pennycook High School as an excellent school, and it's nice to see that it's being recognised in a number of key important areas here. So again, I would congratulate the head and his team for a very good report.
Yeah, certainly it's encouraging and shows the strength of the leadership team in the school, where with the head off Phil, the deputy was able to step in short notice into that inspection process and drive that forward. So yeah, very encouraging. We're happy to accept the recommendations in the report. Thank you. That takes us then to item 8, which is the inspection of the learning community surrounding Pennycook High School.
Thank you, Chair. This perhaps is less encouraging. Community learning and development was inspected as part of the learning community of Pennycook High School, and during the inspection the Education Scotland evaluated the 4 quality indicators, and improvements in performance they noted were weak, impact on participants was good, impact on the local community was good, and improving services was weak. Now, similarly to the head teacher being ill at Pennycook High School, the community learning and development team leader for that area was actually off sick during the course of the inspection, and the inspectors were left with some questions with regards to these areas. So the key strengths were noted that the CLD programmes were delivered by staff and volunteers committed to improving lives, young people and adult learners achieving success in accessing employment, partners and networking in early years, and community organisations and volunteers delivering services. The following areas for improvement were discussed: improved sharing and use of community profile information and development, and strengthen the focus on early intervention and prevention, and strengthen the role and influence of local people in planning, and continue to develop management information systems and reporting on overall performance. The Cabinet is asked to note the content of the report, pass this report to performance review and scrutiny, congratulate those involved in the learning community on the key strengths highlighted in the report, and note that whilst acknowledging the positive aspects, the Council will be challenging support and monitoring the service, and instruct the Director of Education, Communities and Economy to ensure that the Service Improvement Plan incorporates the recommendations of the inspectors.
Thank you, Chair. The main thing that strikes me in here is the impact on the participants and the local community have been rated as good, and this is where that is very encouraging. As the Director pointed out, the parts marked this week are going to be addressed, and so overall we can agree with the recommendations, especially also congratulating those involved in the learning community. Thank you.
Thanks, Leader. I mean, it's really a question to Mary. I mean, this is very disappointing. I'm going to be blunt. Very disappointing relative to the report we've just looked at. Can I ask Mary, how much of this actually is related directly to the school? Because I get the feeling it isn't. That most of this is reflecting what's going on around about the school. Is out with the head teacher, who has some role in this, although limited. Who is responsible for coordinating all these Pennycook activities, and how much role does the school actually have in this? Because obviously their name is used at the top there, and I'm just wondering just what input they have into it. Thanks.
CLD and the school work together, but they also work with the BSLAC High School as well, so it's a learning community. Education Scotland has placed learning communities around high schools, and that's the way that they're looking at things. But in Pennycook we have the very unique situation where there's 2 high schools, so they're looking at 2 learning communities as opposed to 1 learning community around Pennycook. So overall, in terms of pulling things together, in terms of voluntary sector, statutory sector and whatnot, it would be the team leader for that area that pulls together. So it's an inspection around the learning community of Pennycook High School.
Can I just follow on? I mean, I'm obviously aware that BSLAC, there was actually a community unit and there were community workers and a lot of community stuff actually went on in the school. Is that replicated in Penny High, or is it a different model?
It's a different model. So BSLAC and Laswade were the two community high schools. So it is a different model that they're looking at. And one of the things the inspectors reported on was they couldn't see progression. So someone coming in to do a very basic, say, computing for the beginners, what was their progression model for them? Where would they move to through the system? So they couldn't see that, whereas in BSLAC you could see it because you had a unit that you had all of that information there. So that was one of the things that they found that they couldn't see as much evidence of. I'm just looking at the page that I was given. The improved sharing and use of community profile information, that's one of the areas that they looked for improvement. So again, that's really what you're referring to. How do people move on? Strengthen the focus on early intervention and prevention. So how is that learning community operating with other systems within the Pennycook area? So it's not just about CLD. How are they working with the children's services in Pennycook? How is all that linking up together? How do people move on? And to develop management information systems. So that was an area where it wasn't strong, so the inspectors couldn't put their hand on a sheet of paper that said, this is how that moves forward. So.
I could just make a comment. I was at a meeting with the Royal Dick Vet last week about apprenticeships, and they hold open days for high school pupils. And I asked them which schools that went there. And the only two schools that go there are Pennycook High and BSLAC.
Yeah, it is, I suppose, focusing on the good parts of it here and the impact on the local community and participants. I just know from the work they're doing with the neighbourhood plan and that they are putting work into that. They are working with the YMCA, YWCA and certain things. So there are good things in there, but I think there are obviously areas that have got to be focused on, and it does seem that we are progressing, and as I say, we are aware of where we've got to improve on that. Right.
Obviously, the inspectors have put forward a series of issues to be incorporated into the action plan. Have we looked at anything additional on top of that we want to be incorporating into this as part of a bigger look, and how often will that report?
Okay, what's happened is we've now asked for a meeting with inspectors to find out how we've actually arrived at this stage, because CLD is the same team leader that covers Laswade area, and Laswade was very good in terms of their report. So we've asked how we've gotten to this position with this area. So Peter McNaughton, who only took over the management of CLD in January of this year, so it moved from communities back into education. So Peter's asked for an immediate meeting with the inspector, and we'll have an action plan, and that action plan will be monitored very frequently.
Would it be possible for Cabinet to get an update on, following that meeting, just on where we are going and what the next steps are here? Because obviously it is encouraging there's strengths in here, but whenever we see weeks coming through in reports, I think it's important that we do look into that in a bit more detail, into the why, so that we can make sure that there are significant improvements made before there's another inspection. Are members okay with the recommendations, and can we add that as an additional, that we have a report back by way of update? Okay, thank you. Which takes us then on to item 9, the follow-through evaluation of education psychological service.
Okay, back on more comfortable ground. A very positive report in terms of the follow-through inspection of psychology service. The inspector found that the education psychology service, I'll call it EPS because otherwise was continued to improve the quality of its work, the quality of the service's leadership and management, and the impact of the service on stakeholders. So what they found was there was a greater ambition for Midlothian's children and young people, with a clearer vision for education in Midlothian. The strong leadership of our new principal psychologist, Sarah Philp, and she's driven improvements in the service in the last year. An increased coherence amongst the team of educational psychologists, and far stronger partnership with stakeholders, and much closer alignment of the EPS service to the work of the Council, and an increased synergy with the Council objectives. The Inspectors has asked the Directorate to ensure that arrangements for the line management of the EPS service remain stable, and explore approaches to improvement planning which are forward and outward looking and linked to the Council's single outcome agreement. As a result of this very positive improvement, there will be no further visits in connection with the inspection of 2010, so it shows you how long this has been going on. The EPS will continue to engage in a process of self-evaluation and reporting, and the monitoring review of it by the Head of Education and the Principal Educational Psychologist is already in place. So the Education Scotland was very comfortable with that way forward. So the Cabinet is asked to note the content of the follow-through report, to pass it to performance and review, congratulate the Principal Psychologist and her staff on the progress made, to note that officers within the Directorate will continue to challenge, support and monitor the service, and instruct the Director to ensure that school improvement plans incorporates the recommendations by the team.
Thank you. It's just very, very encouraging to hear such a strong improvement where we had some problems before, and it seems that we must congratulate Sarah Philp on this. And as I said, as the Director has already said, very encouraging and good to see.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. I think it is, given the time that it's taken to move on, it is encouraging. It's now able to move on beyond where it was.
Just to make members aware, if you probably not remember, but Sarah was only in the job 5 days when the previous inspection took place. So to have achieved this outcome in the space of a year is amazing. So, I mean, our leadership has shown through. It's, you know, she's moved that service on incredibly within the space of a year.
Just say it's glad to see that mentioned in the recommendations.
Are you happy to agree with the recommendations in the report? Thank you. It takes us now to item 10, which is the proposed increase in early learning and childcare to 600 hours for 2-, 3- and 4-year-old children.
Okay, I'll just very briefly introduce this, and if there's any questions, I've brought Suzanne along, who knows this inside out, because it's quite a complex piece of work, so hopefully I do Suzanne justice. Scottish Government, the Children and Young Persons Bill has stated that we must provide 600 hours education, early learning and childcare for 3- and 4-year-old children. And by August this year, the hours increase to 600 hours for all 3- and 4-year-olds from 475 hours to 600 hours. We also have to look at early learning and childcare for looked after 2-year-olds and also 2-year-olds from workless households. So this has been the result of consultation by Suzanne and her team, and there's a model, there's a preferred model based on 3 hours and 10 minutes mornings and afternoons, and this was the model that was identified as a result of extensive consultation. We also will need our partnership centres in relation to this provision, because we don't have enough spaces in our schools, but we have partnership nurseries that we've worked alongside them through all of the years. And what we're asking the Cabinet to do, and it's quite a long list of recommendations, note the content of the report and the papers, authorise the implementation of the proposed model, authorise the creation and recruitment of the post of senior childcare development workers, and this is crucial to us moving forward. Authorise the commissioning of additional hours and increased payment to our partnership centres, support the continuing delivery of high-quality staff development, support the exploration of options for the delivery of provision for 2-year-olds, and request a further report reviewing the implementation of the 600 hours by June 2015. This proposal that we put forward is for 2 years only, so we want to be able to review it over the next year, and request a further report outlining proposals to provide 600 hours for 2-year-old looked after children and 2-year-olds from workless households for August 2014. So it's quite a lengthy list, and it's also quite a complicated report, but Suzanne's here if people need any further help.
Thank you. This is very encouraging. As you know, this was a major commitment of the SNP government in the manifesto, and we're very happy to see it being well implemented in Midlothian. Particular aspects I wanted to draw attention to are the authorise the creation and recruitment of the post of social senior childcare development workers. This is particularly, I think, going to be very encouraging to achieve these objectives. The early intervention that this encourages will give big benefits to the Council and to our people later on. At Aberdeen, at the National Conference, I was fortunate enough to have a meeting with the ministers involved. That's Mike Russell and Aileen Campbell, and they were very glad to hear the report that, as one of the few ones who attended who was in administration, that we are making on this progress, and they're very encouraged to hear it. Aileen Campbell's asked me to come back more about on the 2-year-old children from workless families, and I've agreed to give her a report on how we're getting on with that. The implementation of that, I can see, is going to be more difficult. One encouragement I was given at that meeting with Mike Russell and Ian Campbell was that the Scottish Government is committing to full funding of this, including capital. I think so. I know there are some concerns in the paper of that, but I expect these to be fully addressed. But overall, I'm very positive, and it's good to see Midlothian doing so well in this.
Thanks. Again, I would echo much of what the Education Portfolio Bob has said. I mean, we cannot underestimate the importance of nursery education. I think everyone in this room knows this. This is the foundation. I'm delighted at the 2-year-old proposal, but that's obviously got some work to be done on it. This is a massive commitment. We do have quality nursery education in Midlothian. We've seen this in numerous reports. I'm delighted that money also has been put behind this. And I read this in the paper, that this is not just an aspiration, that there is a real cash, both capital and revenue, being put behind this. I think this is, however, going to be very challenging for Suzanne and the others involved in this, in terms of how we recruit the staff. We heard in a report earlier about the excellent report at Tynewater, but that there were staffing issues in getting staff. How on earth are we going to staff this, both with teachers, but to possibly a greater extent nursery nurses? And are there sufficient nursery nurses trained to fill these posts? And we're obviously not just thinking about Midlothian here, we're thinking about the whole of Scotland, because the lead-in time for that, I know it's not as long as a teacher, but it is considerable. So how are we going to be able to staff this for starting very soon? Thank you.
There's no getting away from it that it is a challenge for us to actually ensure that we do have the staff in place. But one of the reasons that we took this particular model was that we knew we couldn't cover with teachers. We don't have enough teachers, but we do have some very excellent CDWs, childcare development workers. And putting in post the senior position, it will help to retain people and actually to attract people to Midlothian, because other councils are not putting in this particular post as yet, although some are planning in the future to do so. So we're putting in a model which will attract people, so we're hoping that we will get the people wanting to come and work with us. In actual fact, we will be keeping the staff we've already got, because the hours that we're putting in place is working within the contracts that they already have. So in actual fact, the additional staffing will be to cover the extra times when the teachers are not actually in ratio with pupils. So hopefully it wouldn't be looking for as many staff as we would have had to otherwise.
Well, just as you said there, it's really good to see Midlothian forming such a positive attitude to this, and we are really going ahead, compared with the very negative attitudes I found at COSLA from some other authorities, especially as regards to the 2-year-olds from workless families.
No, I think it is. It's encouraging that we're able to move this forward. Certainly the widespread consultation that took place around the model that we adopted here, I think it's important as it's very much based around what's best for the children. We need to really be having the children at the centre of everything that we're doing in this, and really getting behind it and recognising the significant benefits that this can bring to the young people in Midlothian, and the benefits it will give them throughout their lives. Get Mary first and then...
Just one thing I wanted to say. Whilst we're moving towards the implementation of the 600 hours for the 3 and 4-year-olds by August, this gives us an opportunity to reshape and rethink the delivery of our early years and childcare service. So, we can use this as an opportunity to start rethinking, reshaping. At the moment the model is fitting in, with schools. But will we go that way in 2 or 3 years' time, as more money comes into the local authority? Does it really fit with parents who are working? Does it really fit, with shift workers? So we've got an opportunity here to really rethink what we're doing in Midlothian, and we want to take that opportunity. So built into this model is time for teaching staff to have a bit of time to come out and help shape what we're doing. So we're not at the wire for everything, Gary. We're building in a bit of time that we can actually begin to have a bit of space to reshape, rethink what is our service going to look like in 5 years' time. So it's not just about the 600 hours by August, it's what goes beyond that.
Yeah, I think all these explanations are really very reassuring. This to me is the most important paper on the agenda today, quite frankly. It is very reassuring. Just a wee question. I notice we're going to get a report in June 2015. Will there be any chance of perhaps a mini sort of update, perhaps halfway through the year? Because it's quite a long time to wait to hear how things are going. And if anything does, dare I say it, not through anybody's fault, not quite work as it should, you tend to find these things get reported and it makes it negative on something which is an exceedingly positive issue. So what I'm wondering is, would there be any chance of perhaps getting a mini report somewhere around the turn of, halfway through the session, the turn of the year, maybe somewhere around February, accepting that we're going to get a major report in June 2015? Thank you.
The reason that we said 2015 is to allow enough time for consultation, because we really want to see what happens in practice and then make sure that we do engage with all the communities and staff, parents, and to review how this is going for everyone. However, I'm sure that we could provide a short update sometime maybe about January by doing a kind of sample consultation at that point. Okay,
I think with that, we're happy to accept the recommendations with the inclusion of an update around the start of next year. Okay, thank you very much. That then takes us on to item 11, the Gala Days and Special Events Milestones, which is the first of the follow papers.
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of this report is to allow Cabinet to consider a policy for any future requests from Gala Days and special event organisers who would like to recognise specific milestone anniversaries. In terms of the background, obviously members will be aware of the support that they gave to Newton Grange Gala Day in 2013 to celebrate their centenary. A recent request has came in for additional support from Mayfield and Easthouse's Gala, who at the recent galas and events meeting were particularly pleased that they've reached this milestone, which is their 25th anniversary, and they've asked for some support. In terms of a policy, under Section 3, I've highlighted each of the types of event which are categorised by way of grant, and in terms of Mayfield, that would equate to, I'm suggesting, a one-off grant, £1,250. In terms of the implications going forward, I've been in touch with all the event organisers, and the table under 4.1 details those events that are due in the next 10-year period. So as you can see, that there's very few in reality. So in terms of the recommendations, what I'm asking Cabinet to is confirm the award of £1,250 to Mayfield to support their 25th anniversary event, and that can be met from within existing resources, and that the current review of grants to communities that's been undertaken, I would ask that they consider funding for future milestone events as part of that work stream.
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. I think the grants that are detailed here will have a significant effect on the communities involved, and but will have a limited impact on council budgets in the future. So, from that, I'd be happy to recommend that we go forward with the Mayfield Award, and then look at for the future. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I think it's encouraging to have a policy in place that actually gives us a sort of formal position to take on any requests. It also means that the events themselves know what to expect, because I know that from time to time in the past we have had to deal with them as a ad hoc, so no, it's certainly useful to have this coming through. Are we happy to agree with the recommendations in the report? Thank you. Which takes us then to item 12, which is the Pentland Hills Regional Park proposed extension consultation.
Thanks again, Chair. The purpose of this report is to inform Cabinet about the recent proposal by Christine Graham, MSP, who's seeking to take forward a proposal to extend the existing Pentland Hills Regional Park boundary. In Section 2, I've outlined the operating authorities, how the current park is managed, and what the aims of the regional park are. In terms of existing funding, that's highlighted in Section 2.7, where we can see that Midlothian Council contribute approximately 17% of the current funding for the park. In terms of the proposed extension, essentially there are no extensions within the Midlothian Council boundary. They are effectively within West Lothian and South Lanarkshire. In terms of the southern boundary, there are two options, one of which takes in the Garfield-Dunsire Road, and the other which takes in Black Mount. And to the north of the site, there's extensions towards Balerno. So, in terms of the recommendation, Cabinet's asked to note the proposal for a bill from Christine Graham to extend the area covered by the existing Pentland Hills. Note that the extended area progressed would not cover a greater area of Midlothian. Note that there is still insufficient detail to fully assess the financial impact which any extension may have, and that the park would require additional finances is unlikely to be supported. Agree that the Council proposed response to the boundary extension as outlined in Appendix 2. Note that a further report on the extension of the park will be presented if the bill is submitted to Parliament in due course.
Thanks, Chair. I'm a member of the board of the Pentland Hills Regional Park, and this was discussed not as a formal minute, but just to say there's no business case as mentioned in paragraph 4, and we'll wait to see the progress through Parliament, and then we'll discuss it then.
I think what we're being clear here is, in our response, is that there's no adverse side to us supporting this so long as there's no additional financial cost. And I think we are being pretty clear in saying that. So I think the feeling is that there can be potential benefit from having the whole of the Pentland Hills included rather than just the part that's currently there just now, which I could see some merit in that. And if it can bring additional funding that's not currently there in, that can only be useful, but certainly being clear that no additional money from Midlothian. Happy to agree with the report on that basis? Thank you. Which takes us then to item 13, the anti-money laundering policy. Gary.
Thanks, Chair. In order to comply with best practice, an anti-money laundering policy which set out on page 77 to 93 of the agenda is today presented to Cabinet for your agreement. The policy expands the current framework we have, which is set out in the Council's anti-fraud and corruption policy. And whilst I'm named in that policy as the money laundering reporting officer, the policy doesn't really outline the roles and responsibilities of that post or the reporting mechanisms for the role. And so again, I suppose acknowledging best practice, the policy that we've got before Cabinet today really is what we consider a proportionate and effective policy to complement the existing policy suite. It provides guidance to staff on the types of transactions that could be suspicious and how to report those concerns. I suppose what I would say, our exposure to money laundering is low. It's a low risk, but there's still a reputational damage to the Council should we not have adequate policies and procedures in place, and what's before Cabinet today should address that reputational risk. So today really asking Cabinet to review the policy and if in agreement, approve the proposed policy. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, as outlined in the summary, there is guidance to staff, and I'm very happy to accept the recommendations.
Gary, can I just ask, have there been any particular changes that have brought forward the updated guidance, or is it just a sort of time for refresh?
Really just a time for a refresh, and as looking at what our potential risk exposures are and filling any policy gaps.
Thanks. We have to accept the recommendations. Thank you. Which takes us then on to item 14, the corporate climate change strategy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to introduce this report, but I have with me Brian Forsyth, who's the Senior Planning Policy Officer with responsibility for climate change and sustainable development, if there are technical questions that you want to raise on the subject. Sustainability and sustainable development are embedded in the best value and climate change legislation, and the Council has been engaging in taking forward the shared goals of the UK and the Scottish governments over a period of time now, and the shared priorities relating to climate change and energy issues. In December 2010, we approved a Sustainable Development Framework and Policy Statement, and that is just part of a wider framework of work that's in progress through community planning, through service planning, and the Sustainable Development Action Plan. Going forward, whilst we're a signatory to the Climate Change Declaration, which is reported annually through COSLA, we felt that it was important that we put in place a high-level strategy in order to mainstream climate change and sustainable development that would apply not only to the Council but looking to the Midlothian area. It is just a high-level strategy. It doesn't get into a great deal of detail, and it's important to recognise that sitting behind this strategy is a lot of good progress within the Council itself, and that it can demonstrate to others some of the actions that it has taken to address the issues of climate change, adaptation, mitigation and sustainable development. The Council has approved a carbon management plan. I believe that was in March this year, and sitting within that we have the achievement of around about 21% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions between 2006 and 2007 and 2012. Sitting with this strategy, we have a sustainable action plan. Sustainability action plan has been widened out to encompass climate change also, and that was felt as the best way of taking forward a mainstreaming of the various actions. But the corporate management team have agreed 2 priority areas for action, one relating to encompassing sustainable development within the procurement strategy, and the other within the risk management framework. So this is the two-pronged approach for the first Climate Change and Sustainable Development Action Plan for 2014-15. This is appended to the report. The Cabinet is asked to approve the high-level climate change strategy and the corporate climate change and sustainable development action plan for the current year. And this is really as a first step towards looking more widely at rolling out climate change within the community planning and the wider community context.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Janice. I'm happy that we're going down this route. I was a bit sceptical myself about climate change, but I think it's time we woke up. On your appendix, Janice, I don't pretend to be able to understand these figures on figure 1, but I hope you'll tell me that they're moving in the right direction. I'm happy to accept the recommendations.
It's tables on page 102 and 103. Well, there's no point in asking a question because we don't know. An increase in frequency of very dry summers could be welcome to us, but of course combined with an increased frequency of extreme rainfall events. I think the last 2 summers perhaps show that. We had a lovely one last summer, and then I remember being at Last Wade the summer before when the car went floating down the river. If we knew what we were going to get, it would be a big help, but I'm afraid no one here can answer that, can they? I would be grateful if we did. But let's hope it's a very dry summer.
Okay. I think it's encouraging that we're taking climate change seriously and incorporating it into our corporate strategy. Clearly, there's an action plan attached. How frequently will that be monitored and updated?
We undertake quarterly performance monitoring of the action plan, and it will be refreshed annually.
We're happy to accept the recommendations in the report. Thank you. Which takes us then to item 15, the Scottish Government Regeneration Capital Grant Fund bid for Phase 2 of Dalkeith High Street improvements.
Members will recall that in January brought a report to Cabinet explaining that whilst we've been successful through Stage 1 bid for the Regeneration Capital Grant Fund bid for East High Street in Dalkeith, unfortunately we were unsuccessful at the Stage 2 bid. We now have an opportunity to resubmit a bid, a revised bid, and that needs to be submitted by the 12th of May. This would be for a reduced scheme. The original bid was for a quite extensive part of the public realm in the East High Street, from the South Street up to the Palace Gates, with the intention that that development would help to encourage people to use the town centre shops who were visiting the Dalkeith Country Park, and would also give access to the hotel and other facilities and public buildings in the general vicinity of the East High Street. The feedback we had on the bid was that there'd been a change in the focus or the priority towards building projects rather than the public realm, with a greater focus on the regeneration outcomes also. And whilst we had covered that in the bid, it was clear that our bid was really focused on the public realm. The guidance with this round 2 bid has changed to reflect that priority, and therefore we felt it was worth considering reapplying, and certainly we've been encouraged to do so by the officials that we've dealt with in the Scottish Government. The proposals would include a historic building to the rear of the toll booth and the cross keys. This is a building which is in the ownership of Divine Electrics, who would be contributing towards the scheme, and the intent would be that there would be an expansion in job opportunities through the expansion of their business as a result. There would also be an element of including the Burns Monument restoration and relocation in the scheme, together with some limited public realm improvements outside the toll booth and the cross keys buildings. Now, partners in the scheme are still interested in contributing, and that's very much the case with our partners Dalkeith Business Renewal. But other partners like Buccleuch Estate, who were part of the original bid, will now be concentrating on inputting their effort into the public realm adjacent to the Palace Gates. So that will take care of one end of the East High Street, and the Melville Housing Association will carry out an improvement scheme to the public realm outside the Corn Exchange. So we have three elements going forward, which will also bring forward some of the benefits, or a good deal of the benefits, I think, that we were hoping to achieve with the first bid that we made to the grant fund. In terms of the actual request that I'm coming to you with, we would like to see the Council contribute 20,000 into a pot, which would include input from Dalkeith Business Renewal of 30,000, an Historic Scotland grant of 5,000 towards the Burns Monument, and Divine Electrics would put in 40,000 into this pot, with the intent that we would be able to bid in for a grant of 265,000. So it still seems good value. That funding would be found within the Planning Policy and Environment section budget from funds set aside for planning-related studies, and to lever in external funding for environmental projects. So I'm asking if the Cabinet would approve the submission of a revised bid, albeit a reduced bid, to the Scottish Government Regeneration Capital Grant Fund for improvement works to the East High Street, and reaffirm a council contribution of 20,000, which is what we'd asked for previously for the round one bids.
Jimmy, you.
Yeah, always happy to receive money for a bid for Dalkeith. They caught me on the hop here slightly. I have noticed, everybody else has noticed, how the has improved Dalkeith Centre and the work that's been going on recently. So yes, I would say I would approve the recommendations.
I'm delighted to see this report here. As somebody who lives not in Dalkeith but just outside, I was appalled when I came out here to see the way that this town has deteriorated into certain styles of shops who have performed a very useful function, don't get me wrong. But the place was almost dying on its feet. And in terms of history, obviously Dalkeith has a very important role to play. We used to refer to it as the old county town. And when you look back in history, the role that Dalkeith played in terms of a staging post for Edinburgh. My interest is obviously in terms of employment, and especially employment for young people. And I really do hope that this bid is successful, combined with the other partnerships that were mentioned, and we cannot ignore the change that the arrival of Morrison's is going to make at the other end. And I think combining all of these things together, Dalkeith could come back to life, and we could start to attract more and more of the smaller businesses into some of the shops that seem to just keep closing and opening on a regular basis. So I really do wish you all the best with this particular bid, and I'm delighted that so many other people have agreed to partnership it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's important, but it's the fact that so many other pots of money are potentially available through a fairly, relatively small contribution from the Council, so that has to be welcomed. We're happy to agree with the recommendations in the report. Thank you. That concludes the public part of the agenda. Thank members of the public press for their attendance.